Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Today we're diving deep into Kenneth C. Davis's Don't Know Much About the Bible. You might think you're familiar with the Bible, but trust me, this book is packed with surprises.
It really throws you in at the deep end right away. You know, Davis opens with this story about a church designed to look like Noah's Ark.
But it ends up looking more like the Titanic.
Exactly. The architect missed one crucial detail. The Hebrew word for ark actually means box.
It's a funny anecdote, but it really gets at this bigger issue. So many people, even those who consider the Bible important, they misunderstand even its most basic elements.
Right. So Davis is challenging us right from the start to question what we think we know.
And he pushes us to go beyond those simple Sunday school versions or those, Hollywood interpretations.
He wants us to really grapple with the Bible's complexities.
The contradictions.
Even the parts that make us uncomfortable. It's about engaging with the text on a deeper level. And that starts with understanding its historical and literary context.
Like, how about that flood narrative? We always think of it as this unique biblical story.
But it actually has parallels in older tales, like the Epic of Gilgamesh.
So the Bible's authors were borrowing from other cultures.
It really makes you question the origins of these stories and how they evolved.
Yeah.
And Davis also gets into how the Bible itself came together. You know, the process of canonization. It wasn't some divinely ordained event.
It was people making choices. Right.
Debates, power dynamics, all playing a part.
So we're talking about who gets to decide what's sacred scripture.
Exactly. And that history is just filled with these fascinating details and surprising twists. Like, look at the lineage of King David and Jesus.
There were prostitutes in both of their family trees.
That's right. Rahab and Tamar. These women are often overlooked. But they remind us that the Bible's heroes weren't always squeaky clean.
And it makes you wonder why those stories were included at all. What were the authors trying to tell us?
It's a great question. Davis wants us to look beyond the surface and consider that broader context. The Bible reflects the social norms and complexities of its time.
Even the brutal aspects.
Yeah. He doesn't shy away from the violence in the Old Testament, like the conquest of Canaan.
Or the fact that some biblical laws condone slavery.
It's tough stuff to read, but it's important to acknowledge it.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about how our own moral compass has evolved.
It has, and that's one of the things that makes the Bible so relevant today. It challenges us to confront our own assumptions and to think critically about the values we hold dear.
So we've talked about the historical context, but what about all the different versions of the Bible?
Right, that's another crucial piece of this whole puzzle. Davis tackles the differences between the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Old Testament, and he explains the role of the Septuagint, that ancient Greek translation.
Which includes books that aren't in the Hebrew Bible, right?
Yeah.
The Apocrypha.
Exactly. And these extra books offer a whole different perspective on biblical history and theology. They were considered scripture by early Christians, but later excluded from the Protestant canon.
So even within Christianity, there are different versions of the Bible.
It shows how much human interpretation has shaped our understanding of this text. Davis is encouraging us to be aware of these nuances, to understand that the Bible we have today, it's the result of centuries of translation, editing, and theological debate.
So we can't just take it at face value. We have to understand its history, its context, and the different ways it's been interpreted over time.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. Davis takes us into the world of the prophets, these larger-than-life figures who challenge the status quo.
Like Elijah calling down fire from heaven.
Exactly. But it's not all about the dramatic events. Davis helps us appreciate the different voices and literary styles within the Bible, encouraging us to look beyond a purely literal interpretation.
And he puts the prophetic books into their historical context, showing us the political turmoil and social upheaval of ancient Israel and Judah.
Which helps us understand the prophets' messages and why they resonated so deeply with the people of their time.
So now we're moving from the epic sweep of the Old Testament to the more personal story of Jesus in the New Testament.
And even there, Davis challenges our assumptions. He confronts the very human question: was Jesus really born on Christmas?
I've always just accepted that as fact.
Well, the Bible doesn't actually give us a specific date for Jesus' birth. He dives into all the historical and theological complexities surrounding Jesus' birth, including the debate about the meaning of the word virgin.
He even suggests that December 25th might have been chosen to coincide with pagan celebrations of the winter solstice.
Exactly. It's a reminder that early Christianity was shaped by the cultural and religious context of its time. Davis challenges us to reconsider what we think we know about Jesus and to explore the historical evidence with a critical eye.
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here. We've talked about the Bible's history, its different versions, its complex characters, and the importance of understanding its context. Where do we go from here?
Well, this is just the beginning of our deep dive. Davis goes on to explore the life and teachings of Jesus, the early Christian movement, and even the mysterious book of Revelation. One of the most fascinating parts is the role of Paul. He goes from persecuting Christians to becoming this pivotal figure in spreading the gospel to the Gentiles.
Yeah, a total 180. What prompted that transformation?
It's a pretty dramatic story. Davis explores Paul's conversion experience and how it led him to advocate for a more inclusive Christianity. He argued that Gentiles shouldn't have to follow all the Jewish laws to become followers of Jesus.
So he's saying that circumcision wasn't necessary.
That was a radical idea at the time. Circumcision was central to Jewish identity and practice. But Paul challenged those beliefs. He argued that faith in Jesus was the defining factor, not adherence to specific rituals.
I can only imagine how that went over with the original followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
The ones who knew him personally.
Oh, it definitely caused tension. Davis unpacks the conflict between the Jewish followers and those who supported Paul's vision for a more universal faith. It was a clash of cultures, ideologies, and interpretations of Jesus' teachings.
So ultimately, Paul's vision prevailed.
To a large extent, yes. His letters, which became part of the New Testament, had a huge impact on shaping Christian theology and practice.
So letters like Romans and Corinthians.
They're still studied and debated today.
That's pretty incredible. He was addressing issues in his own time, but his words still resonate centuries later.
It reminds us that the Bible isn't just some ancient text. It still shapes our beliefs, values, and even global politics.
Yeah, and Davis also points out that the early Christian movement didn't have it easy. They faced a lot of persecution.
From both Jewish and Roman authorities, their beliefs were seen as subversive and threatening.
So what kept them going? What motivated them to persevere?
Davis suggests that it was their belief in Jesus' resurrection. It gave them hope and purpose, even when they were facing persecution.
It's amazing how an event that happened so long ago can still have such a powerful impact on people.
It's a reminder that for them, it wasn't just a historical event. It was a transformative experience.
It makes you want to dig deeper into the history of the early church and all the challenges they faced.
It's a captivating story, and Davis does a great job of bringing it to life. He highlights all the key figures and events that shaped Christianity.
So we've talked about the complexities of the Old Testament and the emergence of Christianity, and now the role of Paul in its early development. But there's still one more book to talk about.
The book of Revelation.
Yeah, that mysterious and often misinterpreted book full of vivid imagery.
Beasts, plagues, angels, trumpets.
It's definitely a challenging one. It's easy to get lost in all that symbolism and wonder what it all means.
Well, Davis provides a framework for understanding Revelation's message. He emphasizes that it shouldn't be read as a literal prediction of future events. It's more symbolic.
So it's about the struggle between good and evil, a message of hope for those facing persecution.
Exactly. And remember, it was written during a time when Christians were facing intense persecution.
So it's a book that reflects their anxieties, but also their aspirations, this vision of justice and vindication. Davis's exploration of the Bible has been really eye-opening. It's made me rethink so many of my assumptions.
He's so good at presenting complex information in an engaging way, and he doesn't shy away from the tough questions.
What I appreciate most is his focus on the human element. The Bible isn't just some abstract theological text.
It's a collection of stories written by real people grappling with real issues.
Issues that are still relevant today: faith, doubt, love, lost, justice.
Exactly. The Bible speaks to the deepest parts of us. It offers wisdom and inspiration across cultures and centuries.
And I love how Davis encourages us to be curious, to ask questions, and to embrace the Bible's diversity.
There's no one right way to interpret it. There are multiple perspectives and layers of meaning.
It's a journey of exploration and discovery. It's amazing to think that this collection of texts written thousands of years ago can still have such a powerful impact on us today.
It's the power of stories. I guess they connect us to something bigger than ourselves, something timeless.
Davis really highlighted how the Bible can be this source of moral and ethical guidance.
Right. But it's not always easy to figure out how to reconcile those ancient values with our modern world.
Yeah, it makes you think about those fundamental questions of right and wrong.
He doesn't shy away from those difficult passages, but he also points out those ethical principles that have inspired people for centuries.
It's that tension between those ancient values and our modern ethics that I find so fascinating.
It's a tough one for sure.
How do we apply those teachings today in a way that feels authentic?
Davis reminds us that the Bible was written in a very different time.
Right.
But he encourages us to really engage with those challenging passages.
Not just ignore them because they make us uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's about wrestling with those ideas, trying to understand the historical context, and then seeing if they speak to us today.
And I think it's important to remember that the Bible is full of stories about flawed human beings.
Even the big heroes.
They messed up. They made bad choices.
It's actually kind of reassuring in a way.
Right. It makes the whole thing feel more relatable.
It reminds us that the Bible isn't about being perfect. It's about those struggles with faith, doubt, temptation, forgiveness. It's about grace and mercy working in the lives of real people.
Yeah, we all make mistakes. We all need a little grace.
Exactly, and that's the power of the Bible. It offers hope and redemption even in the face of our failings. It's a reminder that we're not defined by our mistakes, but by love and forgiveness.
And I think it's also important to remember that the Bible isn't some static text frozen in time. It's constantly being interpreted and reinterpreted.
It's a living document.
It evolves. It speaks to us in new ways.
And that's what makes it so fascinating and enduring. It offers guidance and inspiration for our own journeys.
So if you're ready to dive in to the Bible, really dive in, Davis's Don't Know Much About the Bible is a great place to start.
It's thought-provoking, engaging, and surprisingly funny. It'll make you question what you think you know.
So if this deep dive has piqued your interest, check out Kenneth C. Davis's book. You can find a link in the show notes, and be sure to hit that subscribe button to catch our future episodes.
Keep those minds curious and those moments mindful.
And happy reading.